It's more interesting to learn about the making of The Hobbit than to watch any of the three movies.
100% true.
I wonder if it's even possible to splice the three movies into one film and tell a coherent story that's a little fixed. I don't know if it is.
I was pondering if I could edit them down to like a single Hobbit film that's 2 hours.
I think the problem you'd face is that you need within the Battle of Five Armies at least like 20 good minutes of storytelling, and I don't think it's there.
Yeah.
Here comes the theme!
Hello and welcome to the Critical Breakdown, the podcast where we start at the bottom, Rotten Tomatoes, and we work our way to 100% fresh. I'm Max.
And I'm Scott. And today we're talking Say Anything.
Say Anything.
Rated 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. And
Scott,
Scott's choice.
You picked this movie.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Oh.
How many times?
Why a podcast?
How many times do they say anything in this movie?
Once.
I think it's twice.
Twice?
I'll have to go back and
I almost
see.
thought it was 0. I almost thought it was like a trick question.
I thought it was going to be 0 on this watch because I was like, I don't know if they ever say it.
What's funny is this movie I did watch twice this week. I watched it on Thursday, like a normal watch. We did watch separate this week. We normally watch together, but due to some stuff going on, we had to watch separate. And then I woke up Saturday morning. This is a Sunday that we're recording. I woke up Saturday morning and I was eating my breakfast, turned on my PlayStation, Blu-ray was still in, and I was like, yeah, I'll throw it on while I'm just kind of putzing around. And then I watched the whole thing. I love it. This is a Scott favorite.
Oh, yeah. It's a coming of age.
Yeah. Scott Criterion Collection, this would be in the first batch.
It's your classic 80s film that has realistic characters, It's well written. The plot's pretty micro. It's not a macro plot. Yeah. So it's very personal.
Yeah.
I say if there's a mold of like the modern Scott Bait movie, the Scoots Baiters, this is definitely like an archetype for it.
No doubt. Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. Because like another version of this is The Spectacular Now, which we talked about, which there's similarities. There's big differences too, but there's similarities. And I think what I like a good romance. Mm-hmm. I like a good coming of age movie. And I like movies where the characters are very grounded and feel real. Yeah. And to me, both The Spectacular Now and Say Anything do this, but that trait to me is like Say Anything's biggest strength. The characters all feel like real people. When I watch a movie like 10 Things I Hate About You, it's a good movie. I like the movie.
It's fun.
All the characters to me feel like characters. They don't feel like people I'd actually interact with at Riverside High School.
What's funny with that one is it's based off of Shakespeare, so it very much is theatrical in that sense.
Very much,
I was going to say Cameron Crowe as a whole, I think that's his strong suit usually.
It was.
Is writing. Until you hit Aloha.
Some would argue before Aloha. Like We Bought a Zoo.
I never saw that one.
Elizabethtown.
That one, the characters aren't terrible in it. It's just not.
I've never seen
it wasn't that
either of those two either, but Say Anything is his directorial debut, not his written debut, but his directing debut. And then he did Singles, Jerry Maguire, and Almost Famous in like a 10-year run.
So I could say in those four, the characters are written very well.
Oh, yeah. So. And he does really good dialogue. Mm-hmm. And even when we watched Aloha, you could see the hints, like Cameron Crowe was held hostage while Cameron Crowe of 2016 or whenever Aloha came out wrote this movie. Like the actual Cameron Crowe was there. Yeah. It was like a Mad Eye Moody situation. The actual Moody is in the chest. A
younger Cameron Crowe could have possibly written a better one out of that one. For sure. But we're not here to dwell on Aloha. Although I'm sure we'll dip back into it later.
I'm sure we'll dip into the company ink there.
But no, Cameron Crowe, we'll get into if there's any faults with his writing in this as well as other stuff. We'll address the whole thing.
Spoiler alert, there's not faults in his writing in this. But I was a little afraid to talk about this movie.
Hey, we because don't get that way with
this is one of my sacred films where I find it very hard to see the faults. And I know you're not as wild about this movie as I am. Not to say you don't like it,
I like it.
You are at least going to be a little more objective and see things that I could probably also see, but I purposefully ignore. Like Spectacular Now was another movie like that where I was scared to show it to you. Yeah. The biggest one for me would be Back to the Future, where I didn't even put that on our list because And I know you like Back to the Future. It's impossible not to. It's a near perfect movie.
I don't think I could have criticisms. Yeah. I could have a lot of fun talking about it, but
I just didn't want to risk it.
Yeah. No. I mean, but the thing is, like, there's nothing I could bring up.
Yeah.
That would be negative with that film that I can think of. The sequels, yes, actually, but I still like those a whole lot. Yeah. So,
anyways, this is a big digression. I want to change the subject to a bit of applause. We did it, Break Clowns. We got Max's pick.
Got it.
The Wrestler.
We rectified.
It won the poll. It was my B, But our poll winner in a landslide,
a pretty solid victory.
Solid victory is The Wrestler.
The Wrestler.
Anything? What else got vote? Did everything get the yeoman's vote?
Let's pull it up.
No.
I don't know why I said it that way.
And it's not bad talk E.T. or Sense and Sensibility or Moonlight.
We had some great choices, movies. Like we said a couple weeks back.
But this is the first time we've had an official endorsement from the pod.
Moonlight got second.
Okay.
And then Sense and Sensibility surprisingly did well, beating out E.T.
Okay. I think if you spliced together how often we've talked about E.T. during other episodes,
we could make a whole episode.
We could get a whole episode. So if
it's kind of like Children of Men in that sense.
Yeah, exactly. Though we also did a Children of Men episode, didn't we? I don't know, man.
I think we talked about it, but I don't think we ever did.
No, we didn't. It was a poll choice. It was a poll choice.
Yeah. Because in that episode, I think you actually said you could splice that together too.
Yeah.
I would say, and real quick, it's a digression, but I think Children of Men, E.T., and a couple other things that we talk about often, like Back to the Future is a good example. We don't talk about it that often, but those are kind of tentpole movies for the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
So it's like having those in there, they've kind of set tones for movies that follow after.
Yeah. I don't know if this phrase makes sense. I feel like I've heard it before, but they're like a signpost movie.
I get what you're saying.
Like, they sort of set the pace to an extent. Back to the Future is so well written and it's such good sci-fi that there's 50 to 100 movies birthed from it.
Yeah.
E.T., same thing.
Same thing.
All these movies, and they're the movies that you can point to and say, this is how you do world building, Children of Men.
Yeah. And
this is how you do writing with no unnecessary exposition.
This is how you do one-take shots, stuff like that. Yeah. Like, just like, this is how you do dystopia. This is how you make things feel real.
Yes.
And it's a newer one, but it still stands out like that.
Yeah, and I think if we did like a critical breakdown film school and we just watched movies with like the direct goal of like showcasing certain aspects of filmmaking, all those movies and others would be a part of it, and that's why we've talked about them as much as we have.
It's true. Yeah.
But anyways,
there's some of our favorites right there. But
you know what? Maybe that's my 90 this week.
Ooh.
The Critical Breakdown Film School.
Well, before you jump into that real quick, we will be watching The Wrestler.
Yeah.
And talking about it, so y'all feel free to do the same.
Yeah. That'll be next week's episode, The Wrestler, starring Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke?
No, I haven't seen The Wrestler. I think I mentioned that. But
Marissa Tomei?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And Evan Rachel Wood.
Okay.
It's a good one, man. It's really good.
I know you're very fond of it, which is why it was so shocking that it wasn't your pick.
A little tiny bit of trivia, which we'll get into next week. Apparently, The Wrestler began as the same screenplay as Black Swan.
Interesting.
And then they split. And we'll get more into that later.
Yeah. I haven't seen Black Swan either in full because it scares me too much. But I've seen that lesbian scene.
Nice.
What have you been watching? Please change the subject.
Black
Swan.
We finished up season 4 of 90 Day Fiancé, and that was fun. Good trash TV there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul, for all seasons for looping me into it.
Shout out.
And it's that winter season, that Christmas season. And I've been digging some of the holiday classics.
Yeah, like
The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring.
Hell yeah.
Released almost 16 years ago? No, 2001.
2001,
so 17 years ago.
Were those like around Christmas releases?
Yeah, December releases.
Yeah, year after year.
2001, 2002, 2003.
So they kind of are holiday movies.
For me, it's like they put me in that holiday mood, even though they're not. It's kind of like how Harry Potter does too.
I remember seeing them in the well, not the first one. It was a great pain point, but my mother said I was too young to see Fellowship of the Ring.
Oof.
So
had you read the books at all by then?
No, I still haven't read. I have read The Hobbit.
Yeah, that's fair.
I haven't read the trilogy. I've heard that they're very, even if you've seen the movies and are familiar, that it's so dense with characters and stuff that it can be a challenge to read the trilogy. The Hobbit is like a very like the movies are such a fucking train wreck, but the book itself is like a very concise fantasy tale.
It's
all
honestly
in one. It's great.
a kid's tale that's written so that adults can enjoy it too.
Yeah.
And The Lord of the Rings is taking that audience, the books, and maturing it to the level that Tolkien wants to write at. I don't think it's too dense.
I've literally never tried.
Yeah, some people say it's boring, but that's, I think, just people who don't like to read in general might say that. Not meaning as an insult for anyone if you just don't like that kind of fiction, but it's very much written in a very English way. But if you know the source material, to me, it's like way easier if you know like the movies to just jump into there.
For sure.
Because I had read them first when I was like 14.
It certainly doesn't hurt, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just kind of get ideas for visuals and stuff. But I had first read them when I was 14, and I didn't really get the depth of them.
Yeah.
And then after the movie started coming out, I reread them, and that when Fellowship came out.
How old would you have been when you started reading again the books?
I probably started reading right before Two Towers came out again. So 2002, I'd been like 17.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, 14 to 17, when you just say it, it doesn't sound like that big of a jump, but that's the difference between like middle school and late high school.
Yeah, like you grow up a lot then. Yeah. But so then I've read them, I think, once since then. Yeah. And each time I read them, I effing love them. But no, with the movies, for me, I'll go on record to say Fellowship of the Ring is my favorite of the films, which isn't a controversial statement, but I think as far as writing a movie, it is one of the best paced and most concise, like action-packed yet exposition full without a bad bit of exposition, like screenplays.
Nothing
exist.
like sticks out really poorly.
That first one is like, it's almost, with the total credits, the runtime's like 2:58, like almost 3 hours.
And that's the standard edition you watch.
And it honestly flows perfectly, the first one.
It's always amazing when like a 2.5 hour plus movie flies by. You were also watching The Two Towers. And I walked in the last half hour of that, and I've been saying for like 2 years now that I want to do a rewatch of them all, like the extended editions. It's such a big thing, I just haven't. But I was just watching the end of Two Towers. I was very into it immediately. They're great movies.
It's one of those film series that it's like going home again. You're just very comfortable with it. And it's super fun. I had to kind of let the stink of the Battle of Five Armies just finally wash off of me before I could jump back in. But I will say there is a good YouTuber named Lindsay Ellis, I want to say.
We've talked about her on the show.
Well, I've talked about Jenny Nicholson before.
Never mind them.
I may have brought up Lindsay too, but they both do really good things. Lindsay's are more in-depth video essays, and she does like a 3-part Hobbit kind of analysis, like a post-mortem.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that one's really, really good.
Yeah.
She kind of goes into what made Lord of the Rings good.
Yeah.
Like nostalgia type of stuff, goes into a lot of... she actually brings in a really good analysis with Harper Lee and To Kill a Mockingbird and stuff like that, but then goes into everything. Things that you won't even imagine with the film that kind of happened. So I actually highly recommend it. If you clear out 3 30-minute blocks, you can knock them all out. So they're just good watches, good views. But it was good to see that too and get me kind of in the mood to watch the classics.
We should do, like, when we hit that 100 and before we pick a new podcast idea or anything and we're just kind of freelancing, we should like talk in depth about those because there's so much wrong with the Hobbit movies. Like, even the one I like the best, just the second one.
Yeah, same.
It has huge problems.
The ending is just terrible.
Ending is such a gut punch.
Yeah.
Like, and then the fact that the Battle of Five Armies picks up and Smaug is dead within 10 minutes. It's like, why did you even do that? Yeah.
Like the desolation of Smaug shows down at the desolation.
Well, the desolation is like...
I guess that's like...
It's like that refers to the place, wouldn't it? Like the physical location around the mountain. I think by definition, desolation is like wasteland.
I was thinking desecration. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, anyway, still...
But regardless, it's stupid.
Yeah.
Like, there's highs in that movie, like the... when... Benedict Cumberbatch, Smaug, and Bilbo are doing the conversations together. Smaug.
Yeah, no, he's awesome in that movie, and so is Martin Freeman. Honestly,
he's fine in all of them.
It sucks that by the third one, he's like kind of just not even in there.
Yeah. And I guess if you're focusing on the Five Armies aspect, and fan servicing that nobody wants to bring Lord of the Rings things in, then yeah, I mean, Martin Freeman's not a big part of the third one, but God, the third one's so... Me and my mom, big Lord of the Rings fans. We saw this in theaters, and I just, like, about 45 minutes in, I just got up and I was like, I'm going to get popcorn because I'll fall asleep if I don't.
Yeah.
And then I came back and my mom was like, I'm going to do the same. And she just, like, got up and walked around and came back. The scene when Legolas is, like, jumping rock to rock, and then the scene when the evil orc slides under the ice right under fucking Oakenshield. Beyond
you need
stupid.
to watch this girl's analysis, though.
I just... It's like Peter Jackson... He did so good. Like, watching the Two Towers there, I watched, 27 minutes I think there was left, including credits. So I watched 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And there was, like, 5 scenes that are all memorable.
Yeah.
When Frodo is, like, messing with the ring, about to put it on in front of the Flying Nazgul attacking the city. Yeah. The Rohirrim showing up. Aragorn and Theoden riding out of the
horn.
All awesome, evocative scenes that stick out to you. And then, like, they made that.
Yeah.
And the effects of... The Lord of the Rings trilogy hold up better than the effects of The Hobbit. Yep. There was so much computer, and it jumped the shark.
You really need to watch this takedown. I'll send you a link to it.
Yeah, I've seen one of the two. I'm not sure which one. Yeah, like, this between Jenny Nicholson and Lindsay Ellis.
If the one you're thinking of was just kind of a girl in front of a camera with not a lot, then that's Jenny. This one's like more...
Send me the link.
Different clips. It's more journalistic overall.
Yeah.
So. But no, everything you just said would match up completely with things that she not only gives her reasons for and explanations that doesn't excuse them, but makes it make more sense. And you're still angry, but it at least gives context. It's cool.
Even angrier is like learning a lot of the behind the scenes stuff of The Hobbit, because Guillermo del Toro worked a lot on it.
Yeah.
And then got cut pretty late in the pre-production, like right before they started shooting, or maybe they'd even started shooting. I'm not even sure.
They didn't start shooting. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was, at least a lot of planning.
It was within months of starting filming. Yeah.
And then Peter Jackson, I don't think, wanted to direct it and just got kind of thrust into it. And
it's an interesting story. Yeah.
It's more interesting to learn about the making of The Hobbit than to watch any of its 3 movies.
100% true.
I wonder if it's even possible to splice the 3 movies into one film and tell a coherent story that's a little fixed. I don't know if it is.
I was pondering if I could edit them down to like a single Hobbit film that's 2 hours.
I think the problem you'd face is that you need, within the Battle of Five Armies, at least like 20 good minutes of storytelling, and I don't think it's there.
Yeah.
Because how can you show a lot of those things?
He gets knocked out in the book like really fast. It's almost like what they do with Game of Thrones with Tyrion and his battles, where they just get knocked out, and then you wake up to the aftermath. But then you have stuff like the invented character Tariel saying, "Why does it hurt so much?"
You know what's funny though? I actually, even knowing that she was artificial, she wasn't in the book. Yeah. Knowing that the romance was silly, some of the lines I actually liked that she had, but then they still even took it too far with her.
Yeah. I mean, I just love Evangeline Lilly. So her as
great.
An elf running around, I'm on board for that.
I felt bad for her because a lot of the like derision towards the movie goes to her, and it's not her fault.
No, not at all.
You know, and if they handled it, I think, even if I'm remembering correctly, one of the things she said during the movie was that she didn't want to be a romantic subplot. Yep. That's the only thing she would do. And they added that.
Yes. So
with the sexy.
Yeah. There's a lot in there.
That's not this episode.
Not this episode. We'll get there one day.
Yeah, but the Lord of the Rings movie is great.
Yeah, for sure. I like I said, I loved Fellowship.
Fellowship's your favorite. Which is your number 2?
Return to the King. Yeah. If we're doing extendeds, it's still that order, but Two Towers Extended is a lot better than the normal one. But I mean, Fellowship is just kind of, I remember vividly.
It's almost the perfect story.
For me, it's like a perfect film almost. When we went and saw it, I was in high school. We couldn't go opening night, but we went like the next day. Me and a couple of friends were at the mall, like all on a Saturday, and we were going that night. We got to the theater. We had already bought tickets earlier the day, but somehow the theater sold out still. And when we got into there, all the seats were already taken. So we just went and sat on the floor.
God, that's how you know it's a good movie.
Yeah. And we were engaged the entire time. No. And then one of the workers did come up and was like, "You guys aren't really supposed to be sitting on the floor, but I don't blame you." And just like left us alone.
And you're like, they're about to get to Moria.
Yeah. And I think like, honestly, within the month, I saw it probably like 3 or 4 more times. So it was just a great experience. But
like for me, I don't know if Fellowship or Return of the King I'd like better. I want to watch all of them again, and then I'll make that judgment. But Return of the King, I was in 8th grade. I cried during it when Frodo sent Sam away.
Yeah.
I was so frustrated. I remember saying to my mom, I was crying. I was like, Mom, it's not Sam's fault. And she's like, I know, it's the ring. And I'm like, oh.
It's amazing. I remember I had just graduated high school that summer. And then so when it came out in winter, it was like all my friends had left, but we were meeting up again for the first time in winter. I had been gone for a couple months.
Together.
So it was a strange feeling to like see that movie with like everyone coming back to town. It was interesting.
Nice.
So yeah. What have you been watching, Scott?
I got a couple big 2018ers under my belt.
Ooh.
Yeah. We'll start with the bigger one. Creed 2. We watched Creed. We talked about it a few weeks ago.
That's Creed Dos for our
Creed
Spanish.
Dos for our Spanish, yeah. For our Spanish.
Our Spanish.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's not as good as Creed. I still stand by Creed being the best of the whole Rocky franchise. Ryan Coogler is a huge strong point to that movie. A lot of the visuals, the storytelling, the writing is so tight with him. Mm-hmm. And Creed 2 is like, okay, we have that same formula. We have great characters. Adonis Creed is a great character, and Michael B. Jordan kills it again. Sylvester Stallone, still really good in this movie. And Tessa Thompson, all really great. But then you lose a lot of the touch that like Coogler brought to it. The pacing was really strange in this movie. It starts you, and really the biggest difference is it's not an origin story. They're trying to put you in the middle. So like it starts off with, I don't know if you remember the first fight that was in Creed, the first like organized fight he had against Danny Wheeler. He lost his car. Mm-hmm. And so in this, it drops you off pre-fight right away. It's his rematch against Wheeler, but like on the big stage in Vegas. They're fighting for the car again. And they drop you in the middle of that so you get some of the cool fight stuff, but Creed did some awesome stuff with the fighting where it was a lot of like these long one takes with really good camera work, and this doesn't do much interesting with that. The closest thing they do to make the fights unique is they do these weird first person sequences where it's just like the camera's getting punched, and it just kind of jostled me too much. But
sounds like Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
A little bit, yeah. But then they jump ahead to the fight against Victor Drago, and then the middle, like the end of the first act and the second act as a whole are really good. And then the third act is really rushed again. And so it's really interesting, but there's a lot of really good plot lines in there. And Ivan and Victor Drago are probably the highlight of the movie.
Cool.
They have very few lines, but there's a really strong plot line in there. And Dolph Lundgren showed that he's actually I guess given the right material and character, he's a good dramatic actor. He has very few lines still, but he has a total plot that's really strong. And Victor, considering he has 5 total lines, he is incredible.
He does.
Like
he
has
a good job.
His first line, the first time he actually speaks is amazing. It's during I guess this is a small spoiler, but they fight more than once, Victor and Adonis Creed.
Okay.
And during the first fight, after the first round, like Victor was really kicking Adonis's ass, and he sits down in the corner. He's like basically untouched, and Ivan is right next to him, and he says, "He's afraid of you." And Victor goes, "I know." And like that's his only line for the first hour of the movie. It was amazing. And there's so many like lines that are, even as I hear them, I know they're cheesy, but in the moment they're like so perfect. Like when Rocky is advising Adonis not to take the fight, he's like, "That boy was raised in hate." And it's like that line, when you say it out loud, it's like, ooh, that's weird, but I just got goosebumps.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "What's your problem with Ivan?" He's like, "That man broke things in me that ain't never been healed." And it's like, ooh. I don't know. It's really good.
So I was going to say, just real quick, Dolph Lundgren has a very interesting bio if you ever look it up.
I listened to a TED Talk of his about his father. He has an upbringing of a very abusive father.
And then, so there's that. Yeah. That's already like an interesting background, obviously. But his father would call him a loser. I know he had a bunch of allergies and was considered kind of like a runt as a kid. His first desire was to become a rock star, but I guess he started training as well. And also he studied chemical engineering. He studied at Washington State also.
Yeah, that's right.
Your alma mater, Clemson.
Hey!
He did go to Clemson.
Clemson headed to the college football playoffs. I care about football.
He served in his home country of Sweden in the Marine Corps there for the required year. Yep. But also, obviously, was training with martial arts and different stuff. And he was invited to MIT. He was invited to MIT on a Fulbright scholarship.
Wow.
So he's like he could basically be a superhero.
He's
or
like
villain.
a Renaissance man.
Yeah, like he's that level of Renaissance, honestly, where super interesting dude.
Knowing his father and the background of abuse there, he's definitely channeling some of that in this. Because the big plot line with Victor is like, when I lost to Rocky, I lost everything.
Yeah.
You know, my wife left me. My country shamed me. It's like, you have to win. And that's like when he's talking to Victor, and that's like all it is. And it ends beautifully. There's a really nice ending.
That's cool.
It's like, I give Creed 5 out of 5 stars. Mm-hmm. I give Creed 2 like 3.5.
Okay.
Fine movie. Not don't avoid it, but definitely a step down.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if they do a Creed 3, which I imagine they will, because Creed 2 actually killed it at the box office.
Sense.
They projected like a $45 million opening, and I think it opened, don't quote me, but roughly like 58 or 59 million, which is also way above what Creed opened at, which is huge.
Cool.
Yeah. But Sylvester Stallone has said he's done as the Rocky character, which I think he said that before.
Yeah.
But they do set it up where he could walk away, and I think it could really give some new, interesting wrinkles to the Adonis character. It's a really solid movie. There's a really good framework there. And the director, Stephen Caple Jr., this was his first feature-length film. And I know for much of the production, at least I was under the impression that Sylvester Stallone was actually directing. He wrote it, but I wonder if he was also doing some of the direction. But I wonder if maybe a couple more films can get some of the can get Caple Jr. like a little more polish, a little more because it is a little rough around the edges, but it's really good. Not the best movie I saw this week, though.
What was?
On a whim, last weekend I saw The Green Book. Viggo Mortensen, Mahershala Ali. Lovely, absolutely lovely.
Go on.
Green Book's really good, though. It's very cheesy. It's very heartwarming, but it's all very well earned. And I was practically rolling on the floor. I was probably.
I thought you meant ecstasy.
I was almost rolling on the. And it's not like it has dramatic moments too. I mean, it's about like Jim Crow laws and how racist the South still was in the. What would this have been? The 60s? I can't even remember now. 50s, 60s.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I have. But anyways, it has been getting a lot of like kind of surprise Oscar buzz, like maybe a Best Picture nom, probably a Best Actor, at least consideration for Viggo. Mahershala Ali's great in it too. So I just on a whim saw it, and it's one of my top 5 movies of the year. If the Scoots Academy had to determine its noms right now, it would be there. It was really good. It's the kind of movie that I think anybody could see with their parents.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to like it because like it's very warm. The message is just about kind of like loving and respecting people, which nobody can really disagree with regardless of your thoughts on other subjects. That end message you're probably going to agree with. It's just a really good movie. Like I was blown away by how much I enjoyed it. Because even going into it, because the reviews, it's in like the mid 80s on Rotten Tomatoes. I read a couple and it was talking about how, it's a little cheesy. Like, it's so feel good. And a lot of times a movie like that, like it just doesn't work for me. But in this movie, it did. By the end, I was just like, I was celebrating. Like, it was really good. For anybody who doesn't know, because I guess it's not like the biggest release, it's about Mahershala Ali plays a pianist, like a renowned pianist who is going on a tour through a bunch of southern cities to play the piano. And this is during segregation still, when he would have to stay at a colored's hotel and eat at a colored restaurant. And Viggo Mortensen is a very, very like New Jersey, New York, tough, like bouncer type who takes the job. Going into it, he has like kind of preconceived racism.
What job does he take?
The job to be his driver and assistant and bodyguard on this. They needed someone who could kind of handle all these duties and who has driven before. And the Green Book itself is an actual book from the times where it was like the full title of it. I don't want to get it wrong. So actually, could you look it up real quick? We'll cut this out, but it was like something like the Negro Guide to like safe hospitality in the South or something like that.
Oh, I've heard of that before. Yeah.
Yeah. The title of the Green Book comes from an actual book. It was the Negro Motorist's Green Book, and it was a guide to hotels that accepted colored people and restaurants and things like that. And it's so sad that that's a thing. I mean, it's a part of our history, so I don't think you can just kind of gloss over. But they give Vigo a copy of this, and they're like, just make sure he's staying where he can stay and things like that. And so they go through, and the two of them, they butt heads. They come from totally different upbringings, but then eventually, like, they talk to each other, and they actually get to know one another. And there's a lot of really good moments, and their relationship is built really well and earned really well.
I mean, they're both super talented.
They're both super talented actors.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like, I've always been impressed by Mahershala Ali. I didn't. Well, he was really good in Moonlight, but there were other performances that year that I thought were more deserving of that Best Supporting Actor Oscar. But he was awesome in that. And like the new trailer for the new True Detective season looks amazing, and he's going to be running that.
Yeah.
The movie's really good. If you're it's a really good like period piece, and if you're interested in just kind of a feel good, borderline, like it's got some of the makings of like a buddy cop relationship.
Okay.
Like two cops from different upbringings learning to love each other and solve crime. It's like that without solving crime.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I like that you did your
In a World, Bobby Newport.
Yeah, Bobby Newport.
But those are the two biggest releases that I have watched.
Well, they both sound interesting.
And they certainly were big. And then I've been watching my normal Survivor, David vs. Goliath. I'm going to call it right now, a top 5 of all time season.
Wow.
It has been excellent. The editing is like top notch. Last season, Ghost Island, the way they edited it, there was like 2 people from basically episode 3 and on. You knew one of these 2 guys was going to win. And then what was cool was at Final Tribal Council, there was a tie. First time that's ever happened. So I can see why they edited it to like build those 2 people up. This season, though, every character is well edited, well defined, and well established, to the point where sometimes you can even be like, okay, this person hasn't gotten much airtime. I know they're not going to go that far. That's not even happening. Every boot is almost a surprise because every person is well established. They've built a narrative where any of the 8 remaining people could win or could go to the end, and it's really cool to watch.
Yeah.
And I know you're not a big Survivor guy, but
I enjoy it.
Yeah,
I just don't follow it.
You're a good Survivor player.
Thanks. No, but it is a cool show. It's just I'm bad at following network TV.
That's one you definitely need to watch.
Yeah,
like,
I feel like when
week.
you're in the buzz, it's super fun. But
I'm going to give a shout out to a former podcast guest and current sister of mine, Sarah, and her husband, Daniel. They have fully gotten on board with me on the Survivor train. Now, when the episode's on, we text throughout the episode.
Nice.
Or Thanksgiving week, I went down a little early so that I could watch in person with them. But it's nice to have someone I can share my thoughts with. I am what you would call neurotic. I have a lot of thoughts on Survivor, and I think sometimes it's too much for them, but it's been a lot of fun to watch a season live with close friends of mine.
There you go, folks.
Yeah, so.
If you want to be Scott's close friend, watch Survivor.
Yeah. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
But
speaking of neurotic,
here he is.
We watched Say Anything this week.
Boom. Yeah. And for the 90, we'll just say it's the film school.
Yeah, film school. We'll say that.
It'll be the 9. Give me 9 seconds on the clock.
All right, hold on. We're going to do it officially. Guess it's official.
Yeah.
Go.
The Critical Breakdown Film School. We talk about films that show certain aspects of film really well and why you should watch them to learn them. Hell yeah.
There you go. 9 seconds.
Wow. I talk fast.
The hell yeah kind of went over there. Let's be real.
Cut it off at the hell.
Yes, so we watched
Say Anything.
Say Anything.
Yeah. A favorite of mine. We did a little elongated tease at the start of this episode. We kind of went into why I picked it.
Yeah.
So we don't have to talk about that.
We don't.
But it's got a lot of things that you would love as well, namely Cameron Crowe. Huh?
I said me or the audience?
The audience should enjoy the movie too because it's good. But you personally, I know you're a big Cameron Crowe fan.
Yeah.
That's really the whole thought there was for the 5-word sentence of you are a Crowe fan.
It's true.
No.
But not The Crow, because I don't remember if I like that or not. I haven't seen it in forever.
Yeah, Stephen King, right?
No, that's not
Stephen King. I
King.
don't fucking know. I've never heard of it. He wrote and directed it. This was his directorial debut, but did you know that he had written a film before this?
Give me a second. Let me think if I could think of it. I know he wrote one before, but I don't remember what it is.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
I've seen that, and it doesn't strike me as a Cameron Crowe film.
Well, sometimes things are written by someone, if they're directed by
Maybe
someone
I'm
else,
thinking of Porky's.
Will feel different. Porky's is way different than Cameron Crowe style. I would love to see his version of a gross out sex comedy because it would be really weird.
Jerry Maguire, the opening scene.
I guess that's as close as you'll get. Yeah.
Say Anything, though, indie release wouldn't be the right word for it. I was actually surprised to see it had a $16 million budget, but it was not a very big release, and it really developed a cult following afterward.
Do you know what they said saved it at the box office, though?
Mr. Roger Ebert.
Roger Ebert.
Yeah, Roger Ebert was very vocal about how much he enjoyed the film. It was chosen as one of his favorite films of the year, and then in 2002, Roger Ebert came out with his great movie list, which I guess is just as close to like a top 50 or 100 or whatever you get from Roger Ebert, and he included Say Anything. And what he said about the film when it was released was he said, it's one of the best films of the year, a film that is really about something, that cares deeply about the issues it contains, and yet it also works wonderfully as a funny, warm-hearted, romantic comedy. But what I think better sums it up, why I like the movie so much and why it succeeds, is what he said in 2002 when he put it on his great movies list. He said, Say Anything exists entirely in a real world. It's not a fantasy or a pious parable. Has characters who we sort of recognize and is directed with care for the human feelings involved. And I think that best summates the movie.
Yeah, no, those are some good points.
Because that's the biggest strength of the movie. The characters are real, the setting is real, and even though, like, we were hanging out with some friends last night and we very briefly talked about it, but someone had said that it felt silly to make such a big deal out of a high school relationship or something like that. But what I like is even in the movie, I feel like it's earned because one of the big plots for your female lead, Diane Court, is that she was such an achiever and she was so driven, and her father was driving her towards all this scholastic achievement and everything. She never lived like a high schooler's life.
Yeah.
She goes to that first party with Lloyd, and everybody who's talking to her is like, oh, I can't believe Diane Court's here. Like, I always knew you from afar, but now I really know you, and things like that. So for her, this is her kind of coming out. And so this is probably, I would assume, her first serious relationship based on that characterization.
She has the line, everyone knows of me, but nobody knew me.
Yeah.
So that was like real big for her.
For sure. Yeah. But this would really be her first relationship, I would assume, based on the characterization. And that's why it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
And the other thing I really like best from a character standpoint is Lloyd Dobbler, played by John Cusack. He's truly a good guy. Like, he's strange and he's an oddball, but he's not bullied. He's not an outcast. He's liked, loved by people. He has close friends, but he's just a bit of he's a loser, but like in the good sense.
Well,
he's kind of
I don't like
dweeb.
loser. I think one of the IMDb synopses, which we didn't really read, but it refers to him as a noble underachiever, and I think that's a much better way of putting it. Where he has reached the average, like, on everything. Yeah. Because that really funny scene, which I really I do actually identify with this a lot from when I was younger, when he's like, I don't want to sell or buy anything that is produced, whatever.
I'll find the full quote because it's worth hearing.
That in itself just shows that he's kind of rejecting mainstream thoughts, but in a way that makes him seem super average because at that age you're supposed to decide the rest of your life, which is his point, that he's not doing that.
And his point is fair because I don't know many people who are like actively leveraging their college degrees. I don't know many people who, from the day they graduated, they picked that line that they want to go down, and that's where they ended up.
Like very few.
Yeah, very few.
Very specific, very in depth.
Lloyd Dobbler's line there, and this is at a dinner party. It's his, according to him, his third date with Diane, but it's his second date. Their first date was when they sat near each other eating at the mall. Yeah, but it's their third date. It's a dinner party with her father, her mother. They're divorced, so she lives with her father. So it's with her father and a bunch of his like professional friends. And they ask him what he wants to do. And he has the sweet line where he said, I want to spend as much time with your daughter before she goes to England. That's what he wants to do with his life. Very sweet. And then they're like, okay, really, Lloyd, what do you want to do? He says, I don't want to sell anything, buy anything, or process anything as a career. I don't want to sell anything bought or processed, buy anything sold or processed, or process anything sold, bought, or processed, or repair anything sold, bought, or processed. You know, as a career, I don't want to do that. And it's a good line for him. If I have one tiny issue with the character, it's that what he then says is that he wants kickboxing. He's like, it's the sport of the future. It's a bit of a joke, but it makes him a bit more of a punchline than I think the character really would be.
Yeah.
And so that's like the one small issue.
I think it does
and part
show...
of that's because I relate to Lloyd Dobbler so deeply because he's neurotic. He's anxious. He struggles with the same things I struggle with, and that's a big part of why I like the movie, if I'm just being very honest.
I think the naivety of youth kind of explains the kickboxing thing.
Yeah.
That plus the military background from his family, it would seem like a natural thing to lean towards something athletic because that's none of what he just mentioned.
Yeah.
But you could just kind of replace it with any type of, like creative or any field like that, and it probably matches too. So like 17-year-old Max would have said filmmaking.
Yeah.
Or just like photography or drawing, something like, that doesn't seem like it's everything he just mentioned.
Yeah.
And it would still work as a statement, So it's kind of one of those, I get it.
Yeah. I mean, I
what's funny with kickboxing is I immediately thought like how MMA is taken off like really, really big.
Lloyd Dobbler's way.
Yeah. So it's just like, just imagining Lloyd in the octagon.
Another couple funny kickboxing things in this movie. There's a couple scenes in a dojo, and it's the same dojo from Karate Kid, the Cobra Kai dojo. And then in one scene, very late in the movie, after Diana's broken up with Lloyd, he's there doing kickboxing, and then she comes back to like see him, and he looks over to her, and he's kind of like taken aback, and then he gets like kicked right in the face.
Yeah.
And the person he was actually kickboxing was an actual kickboxing champion. The name is on the IMDb. I didn't write it down, but it was like an actual world champion of kickboxing. So.
It's weird in that scene because at the end of it, they start making out.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
he's got a bloody nose.
Bloody nose.
I love, there's one line in that scene that I really love, though, where she's coming back. They had broken up because essentially the movie breaks down to it. I kind of explained this to you yesterday. In my eyes, it's kind of a love triangle between Diane, Lloyd, and her father, which sounds really weird, but her father is pushing her towards go to England, focus on everything you've worked for. Lloyd wants to be with her. She wants to be with Lloyd, but also is recognizing everything she's done to this point. So, like, there's antagonizing forces in there for Diane's love, essentially.
Yeah.
And eventually, Diane hears everything her father's saying, and she calls it off with Lloyd. And then he really spirals in one of the weirder sequences of the movie, like that rainy night where he's driving around doing the recording on his recorder. And
what I like about the film for sure is how realistic so much of it seems because it nails what like a high school graduate would think is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
It very much kind of, a lot of us at that age think of the cinematic version of what we're doing and then do it. So he's driving around taking notes as if he's in a like noir film or something. And then he goes and meets up with his friends and just realizes like that's not helping and all that. But yeah, there's little things like that where he goes and holds the stereo out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
that's iconic.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where, of course, growing up, if you've grown up media exposed, like anyone from the 70s or 50s, 60s on has, you start to grow up with that mindset. So for like Gen Xers, you grew up watching TV and reruns and movies, and it was just everywhere. Like the same thing we had, just without the internet. So of course you would be very dramatic. And in this movie, the things he's doing that are dramatic seem real because it's stuff that I know teenagers do.
Yeah, when you're a teenager or a 27-year-old and there's a breakup, like you think, well, if I do that one big romantic gesture, or like if I could just talk to her.
Yeah.
And what's funny is right before the boombox scene, he's talking to his friends, Corey and DC. They have like a really interesting friendship, the three of them. Like Corey and DC are both women.
Yeah.
And they both talk about how great Lloyd is and all this, but they also like recognize that he's a loser. And they tell him, you shouldn't go after Diane. You shouldn't do this. And it's like, you're just going to get hurt. And he's like, I want to be hurt. And then when he does get hurt, he's like totally depressed, which is kind of funny. But they're like, well, call her again. And he's like, I draw the line at 7 unreturned calls. And then he does the stereo thing, which is the iconic scene of the film. And I think people forget it didn't work at all.
Yeah.
He's got the boombox up. He's playing Peter Gabriel, In Your Eyes, which they got the rights for after. Did you read the trivia about this?
Oh, yeah. It's hilarious.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
To get the rights for In Your Eyes, they asked Peter Gabriel, and he asked to see the film. So they sent him. So Cameron Crowe had probably told someone, we'll send him a cut of the film.
Yeah.
And then Peter Gabriel wrote back or called and was like, oh, yeah, that's you can use the song. So I like the movie, but the ending was weird. I didn't think he should overdose. And then Cameron Crowe realized they sent him a copy of the movie Wired.
Yeah.
Do you think he was like, oh no, that's not the movie, here's the movie, and send him a copy of that? Or do you think he was just like, all right, thumbs up?
Yeah, if he said go ahead, maybe you just roll with it.
Yeah.
So,
but anyways, so they actually had to like add that in post the song because they'd already filmed the scene. But Diane's in bed, she hears it, she like puts her head up, and that's it. She literally doesn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
So his big romantic gesture is a total failure, probably realistic.
Yeah.
It's rare that the big romantic gesture is going to work outside of a movie.
Yeah.
And then after she realizes that her father had been lying to her, he's getting an IRS audit, like the whole movie, or investigation, not even an audit. She goes back to Lloyd. He gets kicked in the face. And then one of my favorite lines there is she's like, I love you. And he's like, say it again. She's like, how many times do I have to say it? And he's like, well, at least one more would be nice. And she says again, it's just really nice. There's a lot of little lines like that.
There's cute things that
I really
feel legitimately good. Yeah.
Do you know which line was put in the 100 Greatest Movie Lines by the production Premiere? I don't even know if it's a magazine or what, but in 2007, it was their number 773.
It's super famous. It is. I gave her my heart, and all she gave me was a pen.
Yeah, and she gave me a pen.
Yeah.
And so we talk a lot about like good writing is when you kind of layer details in that can come up later.
Mm-hmm.
And like one example recently when we talked about it would be Catch Me If You Can, like the Flash comics. It's in the movie. It's not really called attention to, but then the Barry Allen point comes up. So that's really good writing. In this movie, her father's like, well, if you're going to call it off him, give him a pen. You know, don't leave him empty-handed. I think he said it kind of as a joke.
Yeah.
She actually gives him the pen because she probably hasn't gone through a breakup or a relationship like this. She's like, write to me.
Yeah.
Gives him a pen. Then at the end of the movie, when John Mahoney, who plays her father, we haven't even mentioned that. He's great.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
The father from Kramer. Frasier.
Yeah. He's in prison because he had been stealing from. Yeah. He runs an elderly care home as that's not the right word for it.
That works. People know what it is.
Nursing home.
Home.
That's the more common. Elderly care does work. Write that down. Yeah. He's in prison because he'd been stealing from them. And he tries to justify. He has a really good downfall where the whole time he's almost like, I'm doing everything I can for you, Diane, like all this. And then when he's caught, he kind of turns like into a total villain. Then when he's in prison, he's like smoking a cigarette. Everything. I love that.
What's interesting though, which I noticed this time watching it, is she gets really, really mad when her and Lloyd kind of first start talking. Yeah. Because Lloyd is just being a kid, but he's like, oh, I don't know if I could go visit you at work because I really hate watching old people eat. Like, it's disgusting. Yeah. And she goes on.
Because it's a silly little point, but everybody has little points like that.
Yeah. It's just like, and it's a stupid thing you say too. Like everyone when they first start dating accidentally insults someone they like because you're saying some stupid shit without thinking about it. So it's completely natural, completely real. And that's overall, that's the strength of this film is when there's little things like that. But she really digs into him for being ageist, for taking, saying bad things about old people and all this.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you really changed my mind on this, Diane.
Yeah, and then she sees her dad as such a moral compass in the world that when her parents divorced, she chose her dad.
Yep. She was like
it seemed more
13
secure,
or 14.
It seemed safer. But yeah, and then it turns out her dad's taking advantage of old people while putting on this like shiny, nice exterior there. But, Lloyd himself actually cares about people while her father doesn't. So it's just kind of a neat parallel there to have her open like that and then have her have to realize the opposite almost.
Yeah, and then what's great, and I think it's a really good scene to show Lloyd's like true character, is that last scene in the prison. He's talking to her father, who he knows hates him. Yeah. And he's like, Diane's in the car. She couldn't come in to see you though. She wrote you this letter, and he's supporting him. Yeah, he's like, read the end. Did she say like with all the love in my heart, Diane? He's like, no, it just says her name. And he's like, well, you should take solace knowing that letter exists.
Yeah, there's another version.
He's constantly trying to support him, which I really like. Yeah. And he doesn't like try and be like, I won. I've got your daughter. But he's still like any 19-year-old would, gets little digs in because he's like, well, this loser's going with your daughter to England. Yeah. And but he's so respectful still. I just love the Lloyd character because the archetypes that you see in these movies, he doesn't fill any of them. Yeah. The total loser is treated as an outcast. There's like the perfect jock. There's like the archetype. He doesn't fit any of those. He's just a guy. Yeah. And he's just a really nice guy. And they say it when Corey's talking to him. Corey is trying to tell him, I think, to win Diane back. And he's like, what do you mean? My heart's broken. I'm a guy. And she's like, you're not a guy. You're a man. You're not one of those guys. And it's kind of silly when I say it now, but like in the context of the film, you know what she's saying.
Yeah.
And especially the Corey character, who's a very minor part of the movie, but she's really interesting.
Yeah, no,
like,
I like
at
her
the
a lot.
start, they talk about how she tried to kill herself because she was broken up over this guy Joe, and she wrote 65 songs about him. And I love when Lloyd defends her.
I think one of my issues watching the film doesn't really have much to do with the film. This is just a minor thing. I want her story.
Yeah.
As an adult watching it, I'm like, oh man, she's super interesting. Like, give me more of that. And obviously, like, this isn't that film, and that's fine. Like, the film itself is fine on its own. But I really wish, like, Cameron Crowe would have gone on to make a film about a character like that at this time.
Or you could have made it a larger subplot.
Yeah,
because, like, after that big party scene, which is, like, the end of the first act, she's seen throughout, but not really in the context with Joe. And you do see Joe again.
Yeah, and she does seem to get her closure with Joe at the party, which is interesting, but it makes her arc smaller because it's right
it
in
ends
the first act, basically.
within half an hour.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, and she, basically with her character, she's been taken advantage by her ex who keeps using her. She tried to commit suicide, like you said. They run into each other again, and he's like, oh, Mimi, my girlfriend's leaving soon. Yeah. We should get together and have sex. Like, I miss you. And she's just like, you know, I miss you too, and gives him a hug. Yeah. And then it's just like, goodbye, Joe.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. So it's a good character arc, but I want more meat to that.
Yeah, for
subplot.
sure. I think the main
But like
reason,
I said, that's not this movie, so I'm cool with that.
The main reason she's in the movie is to show more of Lloyd's character.
Yeah.
Like right before that interaction, Joe's walking up to her as she's singing a song about how much he broke her. Yeah. And Lloyd stops him and he's like, she wrote 65 songs about you. Like, lay off, back off.
Yeah.
And then later, one of the funnier scenes of the movie, after Diane breaks up with Lloyd, he's driving around doing his noir recordings, says, gave her my heart, she gave me a pen. He shows up at the Gas and Sip.
Yeah.
And there's 5 people there, 4 high schoolers and like a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And they're all like, oh, Lloyd, bitches, you don't need him. And one, I think it might have been Jeremy Piven. It was either him or one of the other guys was like, what you need to do is find a girl that looks exactly like Diane, have sex with her, and then you dump her. And it's like the stupidest advice. Yeah. And then there's like a 10-year-old kid. It's like, yeah, you don't need her, Lloyd. His alarm goes off. He's like, well, gotta go home. They never touch on it again, but it's such a funny little stupid moment.
Yeah.
But another one of my favorite lines, and it's partially because it's Jeremy Piven who says it, but they're like, where did she do it? And he's like, in my car. And then Jeremy Piven's like, no, man, that's your castle. Like, he's so broken up about that. And then Lloyd says, like, rightfully, he's like, let me ask you guys a question. Yeah. If you guys know so much about women, how come you're all sitting here by yourselves drinking beers alone at the Gas and Sip? And they all like look at each other. And then Joe's just like, by choice, man. It's so stupid.
It's a classic exchange.
It does show the difference between Lloyd and
Lloyd's more
the guys.
mature.
It's the man versus the guys.
Yeah.
And even during, we kind of glossed over the part of the movie, which is like the courtship of Diane. Mm-hmm. The things Diane likes about Lloyd are where he's setting himself apart. Like the scene when they got like a coffee at the 7-Eleven, they're walking, he's like, oh, watch out for the glass, and he kicks it out of the way. They're at the party, and he's chosen to be the keymaster. Have you ever been at a party with a keymaster?
No.
Yeah. The keymaster's job is to take everyone's keys and by the end of the night determine if they can drive or not.
It's also to open the gateway for Gozar.
Yeah, for Gozar. But there was no Gozar at this party.
Yeah.
But that kind of shows that he's a little responsible. And then she's talking to everyone's pulling her aside. They're like, Diane Court, wow. And when she's talking to Corey, she's like, what I like about Lloyd is he keeps checking in on me. And they cut. And he's like on the other side of the party, like standing up on his toes, and he like nods at her. And then they just like laugh and walk away. But it just goes out of its way to show that he's not like being pervy. He's not
creepy at all.
And then like when they do eventually have sex, one of the things she's like, you're shaking. Yeah. And she's like, are you cold? He's like, I'm not cold. And like you can tell he was probably just nervous.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I just like that. It's very real.
Yeah, no, for sure.
No.
It's
I was very satisfied with the growth of their relationship too. It felt very modern too, because she, like, as someone who's still going through the dating game, there's a lot of a big part of the struggle with the dating is like the different labels. There's like, are you seeing someone? Are you guys official? It's so stupid. It feels very high school, but they're going through the same things. And she's like, well, I think, I'm going to England, so I got to study. Like, let's just be friends. And then they decided to be friends with potential, I think is what they called it, or opportunity or something like that. But then they just kept seeing each other and hanging out, and there was natural romance there, and it felt very earned. Yeah. Some movies, it doesn't feel very earned to me, but I liked it.
No, the relationship aspect of it, of them getting together, worked for me. I know why she doesn't have like an active social life, but I think the trade-off there is so much of the relationship depends on her and her dad, and getting that apart, getting that like relationship across, and it does work. But then the betrayal part, she's so isolated that I feel it hurts her character some. Yeah, because then you don't have the sympathetic friends for her to help, like Lloyd has, to build out Lloyd's character by seeing relationships. All of her relationships are displayed through her father
or through Lloyd.
So that's to me like one of the bad sides of the movie, where it doesn't hurt because it's Lloyd's story overall for the like potential, but as far as really getting both sides of this relationship, which I think is pretty even in their portrayal for the most part, I don't think her part lands as much in the second half for me.
Yeah. One thing they could have done is there's one scene where she's having dinner or lunch with her mother. Yeah. And her mom says, she's like, well, if you want to come live with me, I've always got your room set up. Yeah. Which when she first said it, I was like, that's weird, because in my mind, I was thinking the divorce was like 10 years ago or something, but it was really like 3 or 4.
It's pretty recent. Yeah.
Maybe they could have expanded on that.
I do know some divorcees who don't have custody who do things like keep a room ready just in case, because you never know when things change.
And so that's a good aspect of the movie. Yeah. But the mother's not a character. No. Outside of that scene, she's not even in the movie.
And that's an intentional choice on purpose because the security of the father was so enticing.
That's true.
But that could have been a natural character to build out more of Diane. And that's kind of like my only issue as far as...
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Because Diane's a little surface level.
Yeah, like she could be deeper, because she starts out, I think, pretty deep. Like that first half, I think she works very, very well. Yeah. It's just like towards the breakup side of it, it's harder to fully get on board with her side of things. Because it almost feels more realistic that she would just not bring this up until like the exact week before she leaves. Yeah. Like she would just push it aside, then jump on it.
But I think she's also like an inherently good person, and she didn't want to lead Lloyd on because that's what she says. And, but I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, if it's something that you know is going to end, and you're moving to England in so many weeks, why not just like why call it early when you could have at least 6 more good weeks or whatever? But
even in a kind-hearted way, I think a lot of times humans put off the hard stuff. Yeah, like we'll be like, well, I need to finish fixing my fence and the roof before I talk to, my son about the pot I found in his room. I just made up a bullshit situation, but basically, like, people will find things to make themselves busy. So if it's like, I really don't want this relationship to end, I'd rather just still be with them. I'm just not going to bring it up again for a while. But that being said, like, I get why it works based off her character. It just, for me, that second half of the movie was harder to stay with.
The first half of the movie is stronger than the second half. Yeah. The courtship and their developing relationship. The thing that made the breakup work is that it was barely her breaking up with him. It was really her father forcing that. And like he's making it seem like he's like, well, it's your choice, of course, all this, but you did work so hard for this, and it is such a big opportunity, your whole life. But whatever you want, if you want to stay with Lloyd, you can. But like he's very much laying on how much of a loser Lloyd is, and then like after the breakup, when he's calling and doing the voicemail, he's like, oh, pick up the phone if you want. But then like even when they're listening to the voicemail, he's like rolling his eyes and like shaking his head at the things Lloyd's saying. So it's like very much like an infectious like thought on her. Yeah. And then when the spell of her father is totally dissipated because she finds out he is cheating, which she had her suspicions because she sought out the money because she went to talk to the IRS folks, and and they were like, does your father have a lot of art or a lot of things that cost maybe like $8,000 to $10,000? And what's funny is earlier the jukebox.
Yeah, he had said. It was 9,
so another little nugget at the start of the movie.
Bought it cash. But, that was the other thing they said.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that puts enough of a thought in her head, and I think for her, it's like her heart still would want to be with Lloyd. So she was looking for things to like kind of break her father, like the image of her father, because then she went through all his drawers and everything to find the cash. And
what I liked with that part actually that really worked for me was she says, she's like, I can't believe, when she was talking to them, she says, you're just asking me questions to try and trap me. Like you're just trying to get me to answer these questions. I'm not gonna do it. Yeah. Then she goes through her whole house, like panicked, looking for stuff. And she's like, I can't believe they would get to me that way. Yeah. Like, they got to me.
Because like it seemed like she gave up on the search, and then she looks up, sees one more thing.
Sees the box that we saw the gift from earlier. So then she goes in there and finds cash. Yeah. Cash money, just stacks of cash.
Wads.
Yeah. Fat wads.
Which the one thing that was a little weird was they were trying to show how John Mahoney's character was broken from this IRS audit, and he's buying luggage for her, and he's trying to use his cards. I would think he would have used cash because he buys things in cash. Like he's at the luggage shop and remember they use the cards, but then they're talking about does he buy a lot of things with cash? But then that moment wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
Because his card gets declined twice. His ego is broken because he was flirting with the lady, and then he has like a scene where he's like crying in the bathtub, and
I think realistically
that's when she knows something's up to him.
If he's not trying to draw suspicion to himself, he wouldn't drop fat cash once he knows he's under investigation.
That's true too.
Yeah, so to me that actually didn't even like blip up.
Well, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, but I think for that it kind of still works.
Though he does have like not holier than thou, but he has like a very much like a I didn't do anything wrong, and sometimes people. Yeah,
he's very righteous, self-righteous.
Self-righteous. Yeah. They convince themselves that they're not doing anything wrong, and it felt like that was the case here because he was like, "Are you kidding me? I was doing all this for you." He was like, I was like, I help these people. Their families aren't there. He's like, I hope when I'm that age that someone like me's there.
Yeah.
But he's literally robbing them at the same time.
Yeah,
so it's like he's so self-righteous about it that
he's trying to
he barely sees anything wrong.
The ends justify the means kind of argument. It just doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
As it's not supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. But would this film have worked for you if it were starring Kirk Cameron and Jennifer Connelly?
Jennifer Connelly, maybe, but not Kirk Cameron.
Okay. Well, that was a couple other casting options.
If it was starring Robert Downey Jr., yes, it probably still would work.
How about Elizabeth Shue?
I do love me some Shue.
What was her biggest role? I can't even think of anything.
She's in the Back to the Future series.
Who does
she plays Jennifer.
Oh, yeah.
In
2 and 3?
Yeah.
Because they recast her.
She's also in Hamlet 2 as Elizabeth Shue, I think.
What's the plot of Hamlet 2?
It's a school putting on a production of Hamlet, but a sequel to it.
Yeah.
You might actually really like Hamlet 2. There's a song in it called "Rock Me Sexy Jesus."
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
But a couple other casting options for Lloyd Dobbler were, as we mentioned, Downey Jr. and Kirk Cameron. Christian Slater.
I heard Peter Berg.
Yeah. He was a big director.
Yeah.
But he has done a good bit of acting too. This would have been well before I think he was in anything really. But
did you catch one of our alumni in the movie?
Does Jeremy Piven count?
If he's been in something else, yeah, he does too.
He was in Smoking Aces, baby.
That's the first movie I pulled out of my head, but he's probably been in like 30.
That's the one I can think of, but then there was also I Melt With You, which wasn't one of our movies.
It almost was.
Yeah, maybe that'll be the
I'll say I got one that's a little bit higher tiered in a sense.
Higher tiered. No. Lily Taylor. I don't know. I'm just saying actors.
Eric Stoltz.
He was in this movie?
Yeah. He was the guy who threw the party.
Oh, yeah.
He was the ginger dude.
Yeah, and he was in The Butterfly Effect.
Yep. As one of the creepiest people ever.
Yeah. A pedophile. How we qualified that.
Eric Stoltz also was originally Marty McFly, but got recast because he didn't have the charisma.
That was in the darker rendition of Back to the Future.
Yeah. No, this movie does have a pretty big cast, and you mentioned earlier there's a lot of children of famous people. Ione Skye is, or Ione Skye, I don't know how you say it. She is the daughter of Scottish pop singer Donovan. You had Jason Gould. Jason Gould's his name. He's the son of Barbra Streisand and actor Elliot Gould.
Oh.
He was the guy with the curly red hair that passes out in the toilet.
Oh, yeah. Very memorable one scene actor.
Yeah, his scene when they're driving around, I love that scene. That's maybe my favorite little bit.
Like, I'm new in town, and that gives me hope. If you could be with Diane Lane or Diane,
God, if he's with Diane Lane, yeah, geez. No, but then they just drive around all night basically, so that's even better because that's very teenage.
Yeah.
You have China Lloyd Phillips playing Mimi, who is the new girlfriend, and she's from Wilson Phillips, and she's the daughter of John and Michelle Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas. So like famous band. They sing Make Your Own Kind of Music, I think.
Oh.
Or one of the singers.
I know that from the
Lost.
premiere of Lost season 2.
And then DC was the daughter of the producer as well.
Okay.
Then
the producer I think went on to do Seinfeld, or not Seinfeld, The Simpsons.
Yes. Yep. James L. Brooks. Yep. But then you have the Cusack siblings who are the child of an actor, and you have Jeremy Piven whose family has acting in it as well.
Yeah.
And they all kind of come as a group together in a way. But so a lot of generational talent here. Sure. Which makes sense if you have like kind of a no-name guy directing that you guys have a lot of faith in.
Yeah.
That you would kind of match a project like that up in the 80s where it's like all our kids want to do stuff. this has some good potential.
Yeah.
You still see that nowadays with a lot of projects where
For sure.
it's like up and comer with a bunch of like newcomers.
Yeah, and a lot of times you don't see it until, like, you don't notice it until after the fact.
Yeah, for a decade later.
Because the movie might not be, like, this is a very obviously well-regarded movie, but the movie might not be that well-regarded, but then you look back, you're like, wow, there was a lot of talent in this.
It both raises the profile potential, but also mitigates risk.
Yeah.
Because your kids are going to be in movies anyway. This guy has a lot of potential, but you're not breaking the bank to make the movie, even though this had a solid budget.
Yeah, I was surprised at how high the budget was.
You're not doing like with Creed 2 having a kind of a newer director to it.
Yeah.
That's a bigger risk than this was, obviously, because if they drop the ball on Creed 2, that's a franchise.
Yeah,
this is never really.
This is a one-off.
Exactly.
If it had only made $20 million and Roger Ebert was like 2 stars, then it's probably not a movie we're talking about.
But people would still watch it from time to time, and it would still make enough residuals where it's fine. Like
I
it
think
would do okay.
With the Creed 2 situation, I think they were hoping Coogler would be able to come back.
Yeah.
And then when he couldn't, it was probably too late to really land a big director who could make the project his own. So they kind of have to fill in with someone with Stallone. They're kind of still driving
the journeyman directors is what they usually grab for
the journeyman directors.
The guys who they don't necessarily stand out, but their work is solid. That's what Ron Howard's usually listed as, surprisingly.
Yeah, Ron Howard, I feel like, stands a little above that. But like, who directed Tombstone? What was that guy? And because they're George P. Cosmatos, because they talk about how Kurt Russell really directed Tombstone. Yeah. But anyways, it's a weird digression.
Yeah, that is. But that's what people
who
listen
really
for.
directed
That's what people
Tombstone.
listen for. No, I like this movie. As far as 80s movies go for teen like rom-com type of situations, this is a little bit deeper than rom-com, but
I mean it is a rom-com, but it's just such a different axis than other ones.
As far as they go, I mean, it's definitely cream of the crop. I think.
Yeah, I mean, your other competition is like the Brat Pack stuff, right?
Yeah, and I love a lot of that stuff. And a lot of it's better than some of it. Like The Breakfast Club's a legitimate amazing movie, and that's probably the standout always. But you have a bunch of different options in this area and in this kind of style. But it's funny because where you definitely were drawn to Lloyd for a lot of his like neurotic guy tendencies. For me, I'm an anxious person, but I'm not a neurotic person.
Yeah.
So I think that's where like I differ with Lloyd a lot of times. And while I identify with that, give everything up when you're young for like the love of your life that you just met. Because I think that's pretty legitimate for that age. Now, as an adult watching it, it's harder for me to really grasp onto that concept. But it's funny, actually, when I think about it. I know a lot of dudes who I hung out with at the time when I was younger, about this age, like really loved this movie. Like the first time they watched it, this was their film from then on. And so you're not alone in that by any means. And I don't think there's any issue with it. I think it's one of the appeals of the film.
Even if I were,
you'd be okay with it. Yeah. No, but I think it's a big appeal of it is that these people all feel so real.
And that's what makes it different from even, I mean, I love The Breakfast Club too, but even The Breakfast Club where every character is pretty archetypical. And one of the beauties of The Breakfast Club is that usually those characters are kind of doing something different within their archetype. Yeah. Like the athlete is kind of acknowledging the pressures and stuff that he's under.
And
he's not your
structured
generic
around
athlete.
that. So that's why that one works so well.
But a movie like Say Anything is just so different.
Yeah.
Like it zigs where the other it zags where every other movie zigs. Yeah. So it's always going to be the kind of movie that's going to carve out a specific audience that really likes it because they latch on to that more than the kind of standard.
Yeah. And I'm not saying this movie's bad in any single way. I'm just saying it doesn't have the emotional oomph I remember it having for me when I was younger because I enjoy it still. I like it. I like the storytelling. Yeah. Other than that thing I mentioned with, like, I just wish Diane was a little bit more fleshed out towards the end.
Yeah, there's some of the other characters could have a little more.
Because, like I said, it begins very equally their story, but definitely tilts towards Lloyd being more in the end.
And, I mean, it is Lloyd's story at the end.
And it is, I mean, that's the thing. But I do like that it's not just him like driving the action in the beginning, and I think that's why it appeals to me is that they're both driving what happens in the relationship. So, no, it's good.
Apparently, there was some natural chemistry between.
Yeah, I read that. They said if they both weren't involved, they would have gone home together after that first scene.
After the scene where where he was teaching her the stick shift. That's a very funny scene.
Yeah.
He's like jolting around the car like violently. No,
and
I've
like,
waxed
I like all
poetic this whole
those moments
episode.
once
Yeah.
again. Like because
moments.
she wanted to learn how to drive her car that her dad got her, but her dad was too busy.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know if it was that. I think because she had said this weekend, teach me how to drive the stick, and he's like, okay, but then I would have assumed the dad would have like dropped whatever to teach her, but then she chose to be taught by Lloyd, which probably rubbed Mr. Court the wrong way. John Mahoney's really good too.
No, he is really good.
We haven't talked too deep about him, but I talked about his kind of descent into pure villainy by the end, and I thought it was really good. But even before that, he is just kind of a tough dad. Yeah. Before he really emerges as the villain or the antagonist, really, he is just like a discerning father who wants a very achieving daughter.
And like that part of the film actually does resonate a lot with me, just because every situation of dating I ever had was always like meeting the dad is a nightmare scenario, and I kind of have only ever been interested in a mixture of overachievers and hot messes, like vice versa. Yeah. So for the overachiever camp, when I was a young lad, it was always like, okay, I'm scared to death to meet your dad.
They're like, Max, what are you going to do? And you're like, kickboxing.
Yeah. I'm like, I like Legos a lot.
One of the other things I like about that scene is right before it starts, Corey and DC are talking, and DC's like, oh no, a family date, Lloyd is going to be bad at that. And Corey's like, yeah, I told him not to say a word. And they're like, he can't stop him, but I told him not to say anything. And at the start of that scene, he's just like kind of sitting there, and then he starts to open up, and then he makes the whole don't want to buy or sell anything processed thing. So it's like he's following the orders, but then he just kind of becomes himself still.
The best part of how awkward he is in that scene is when he says the thing about them telling the story. Yeah. And just how awkward he makes that whole table.
I thought it was a really tender moment.
It was sweet on his part, but everyone else is like,
yeah, because I guess
it just felt
it can be painted sad because he's like, the way you guys talk and just get each other, I don't have that with anyone.
Yeah,
and everyone's just like,
so they're all like, but he's being sincere.
Yeah, that's what he's very sincere.
Yeah. So it's not like he's been like, wieners or anything weird. Like he's making a point, but it's not even odd to him. Like I don't think he catches on.
Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of the moment is everyone else was like, ugh. Yeah. But he said something, and I think Diane saw it as very nice too.
Yeah. But it's an interesting scene. Really tiny stupid bit of trivia. I recognize an actress's name in the credits that popped up. I think as the movie started, maybe or when I looked it up on Google before watching it. And it's this actress named Joanna Frank, who I only know because, and it's very dumb. She's in a very fun episode of the original Outer Limits series where she plays a very cute lady who becomes, she's actually a queen of a beehive trying to take over humanity. So she's like a collection of bees, but you don't find it out till later. It's an amazing, stupid, like sci-fi 50s, 60s.
It's always fun to like have those little recognized moments.
Yeah, and she's just one of the older ladies at the table. Yeah. But I was like, that's that lady from that one episode of that one show I saw that one time that stuck in my head forever.
That's a crazy plot too from that one, is because bees don't lie.
Do not lie.
Max, where can the good people find us?
You can find us at the dojo practicing Cobra Kai kickboxing.
Hell yeah, dude.
Or you can find us at thecriticalbreakdown.com. You can find me trying to convince Corey to not care about Joe anymore and go on a date with me instead. Or you can find me at Twitter at MaxRiverFilm.
You can find me hanging out at the Gas and Sip by choice. Or you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at breakdown_Scott. Or you can find me on Letterboxd at Stenin2. Find my full Creed 2 thoughts. Maybe I was a little more articulate about what I liked about the Green Book so much on Letterboxd. Maybe. Probably not. Our art is done by Josh Rivera.
And our music's done by Jason Brown.
And Walter's our podcast, John Cusack.
And we're the podcast Elder Care Center.
Yeah, right. And remember, guys, next week, The Wrestler, where Max and I, live on Facebook, will wrestle each other to the death.
Shirtless.